Is mercy a weakness in the face of raw survival, or the ultimate strength that reshapes fate itself? The world had become a shrieking, opaque vortex of white. Each step of the Siberian hunter, a man carved from the land itself, was a testament to raw, fading will, his dark green parka a meager shield against the ferocious snowstorm's blinding fury. His gaunt, weathered face, rough with a short beard now rimmed with ice, squinted, searching for any break in the treacherous ice and snowbound landscape. Then, a shadow, a promise, the jagged mouth of a cave. Relief, potent and sudden, threatened to undo him as he stumbled through the deep snow, his heavy-worn leather boots crunching through the silence momentarily offered by the antechamber. But the silence was a lie. A low, guttural growl ripped through the bitter cold. His sharp blue eyes, which had just softened with weary hope, snapped into primal terror. A colossal alpha wolf, shaggy gray-brown fur bristling, scarred muzzle bared, emerged from the deeper shadows, fierce amber eyes burning with defensive fire. His hand, thick-gloved and trembling, instinctively dropped to the haft of his hunting axe, the ancient carved bone amulet on his leather thong bouncing against his chest as his heart hammered. This was it, the apex predator, the ultimate confrontation. Then, his gaze caught the raw, gaping, bloody wound on her left flank, and beneath her, 3 tiny, shivering wolf pups, emaciated, one barely moving. The fight-or-flight impulse fractured, replaced by a shock of shared mortality, an unsettling empathy for the life teetering on the brink. Slowly, deliberately, the axe was lowered, a silent, impossible truce forged in the crucible of despair. The uneasy truce settled into a rigid, almost ritualistic, rhythm within the cold embrace of the cave. The hunter, his lean, muscular frame screaming with exhaustion, retreated to his corner, his sharp blue eyes constantly assessing the alpha, whose own fierce amber gaze never truly left him. Sleep came in ragged, hypervigilant snatches, each rustle of her shaggy fur, each pained whine from her gaping wound, a jolt to his frayed nerves. The initial terror had receded, but a profound burden had taken its place, the weight of his own precarious survival now inextricably linked to this fragile, impossible family. His first priority, beyond breathing, was fire. His thick-gloved hands, clumsy with the bone-deep bitter cold, meticulously nursed dwindling embers, adding slivers of precious wood, watching the faint smoke rise. Every spark, every flicker of warmth, was a defiant gesture against the encroaching death. Then, the cave entrance. The ferocious snowstorm raged outside, a constant, visceral roar, driving snow and icy drafts into their makeshift shelter. He worked methodically, pushing loose rocks, piling chunks of snow and ice, his dark green heavy parka caked with frost, sealing the opening piece by agonizing piece. Each movement was a calculated risk, a wary glance towards the alpha ensuring he didn't breach the invisible line of their coexistence. She watched, silent, her hackle sometimes rising, but her deep, pained growls now held less aggression, more a plea against the shared cold. His brief forays outside for fresh snow, vital for water, were agonizingly quick, brutal encounters with the full force of the howling vortex. He'd return, shaking, numb, and place the melting snow near the fire. His meager rations, dried meat, were consumed with a hunter's efficiency, but his gaunt face showed the gnawing hunger. Yet, as he ate, his sharp blue eyes would drift to the wolf pups, shivering, emaciated bundles of fluff, their wide blue-gray eyes reflecting desperate vulnerability. He'd use a stick, subtly, to push a glowing ember closer to them, extending the fragile warmth, a gesture of compassion he hadn't known he possessed. The critically ill pup remained alarmingly still, a silent, constant accusation. The storm outside intensified, a visceral antagonist, forcing both man and beast into deeper, colder communion. His own stomach cramped, a desperate resolve hardening his features. This wasn't just about his survival anymore, it was a moral necessity to fix a broken past, to defy the natural order he once believed absolute. The deepening emaciation of the pups, the alpha's increasingly gaunt frame, spoke a language of desperate urgency that transcended species. The critically ill pup barely stirred beneath its siblings, a silent, agonizing clock. His own hunger was a constant, gnawing pain, his lean, muscular body a scaffold of aching bone and exhausted muscle. He could wait no longer. With grim resolve, his gloved hands, stiff with cold, meticulously checked his axe, honed to a razor edge, and the crude snares he'd fashioned. A deep breath, a final, wary glance at the wolf family, and he pushed through the ice-choked entrance, stepping into the renewed fury of the blizzard. The world dissolved into white chaos. The extreme cold tore at his exposed face, stinging his rough short beard. His heavy-worn leather boots sank into deep drifts, each step a monumental effort across the unforgiving, silent, deceptive frozen wilderness terrain. He was a ghost in the storm, a speck of defiance against a hostile universe. He found faint tracks, a hair, then a ptarmigan. He knelt, frost-bitten fingers meticulously setting a sinew snare, a silent prayer escaping his lips, his ancient carved bone amulet bouncing against his parka. Hours blurred into a punishing cycle of tracking, stumbling, enduring. A lone ptarmigan fell to his desperate lunge, its fleeting warmth a cruel comfort against the numbing cold. It was not enough. The return journey was an agony of physical and mental exhaustion, yet the image of the dying pup burned behind his eyelids, an unbearable weight of responsibility. He reached the cave threshold, collapsing, panting, the smell of raw meat momentarily piercing the cave's stale air, prompting a low growl from the alpha. He offered a small portion, watching the hungry pups feed, but it was a fleeting reprieve. A new day, a new, more desperate hunt. The blizzard intensified with a savage, blinding fury. He trekked deeper, his body an automaton of pain, until he spotted larger tracks, a substantial kill. Hope, sharp and desperate, jolted through him, spurring him onward, but the storm swallowed the tracks, disorienting him completely. A violent gust threw him, tumbling down an icy incline, burying him in a deep snow drift. Hypothermia seized him, his limbs growing heavy, unresponsive. He collapsed, his face disturbingly pale, lips blue, hallucinations of whimpering pups swirling in the opaque white, a crushing sense of failure consuming him. He had failed them. Back in the cave, the alpha wolf paced restlessly by the entrance, sensing his prolonged absence, her ears twitching. Anxious whines escaped her throat as she listened to the howling vortex. The pups huddled together, the critically ill one barely moving, its small chest rising and falling imperceptibly. A long, mournful howl ripped from the alpha's throat, echoing through the cave, a cry of despair for her missing, unexpected ally. But the image of the dying pup was a spark of defiance, a tearing pain in his hypothermic haze. With a guttural grunt, an almost supernatural surge of will, he pushed himself up. He crawled, then stumbled, driven by a primal, animalistic resolve. Through the blinding snow, a dark shape emerged, a wolverine, fierce and low-slung, actively feeding on a fresh kill. The smell of fresh blood cut through the cold. Hunter, no longer a man but a desperate force of nature, let out a guttural sound and lunged. It was a brutal, messy struggle in the deep snow, fur and parka torn, a snarl of his own escaping his lips. He fought not for himself, but for the lives in the cave. With a last, desperate swing of his axe, the wolverine recoiled, leaving the kill to a collapsing, bleeding, utterly spent hunter. He dragged himself and the hard-won meat across the frozen landscape, a ghost of a man, fueled by the pup's image, towards the faint, flickering glow of the cave. He collapsed just inside the threshold, battered, bruised, covered in mud, blood, and ice. The alpha wolf watched, a tremor running through her, her fierce amber eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperate recognition. The critically ill pup lay still, barely breathing. The alpha slowly, cautiously approached, nudging the fresh meat towards her dying pup, then looked at Hunter, her amber eyes meeting his dulled blue ones in a silent plea. With trembling, injured hands, Hunter tore off a tiny piece of meat. The pup, miraculously, weakly accepted it, a spark igniting in its wide blue-gray eyes. The alpha let out a soft whimper of gratitude, nudging Hunter's arm gently with her muzzle. The impossible bond was sealed. The tide of their collective survival had turned. As the relentless storm finally began its slow, grudging retreat, a new rhythm, born of mutual respect and shared endurance, emerged within the cave. The alpha wolf, her gaping wound now a raised, crusted scar, visibly stronger and more mobile, began to hunt again. She would watch the man's meticulous preparations, then venture out herself, returning with her own kills, snow hares, small birds, which she implicitly shared, allowing the pups to feed freely. The pups themselves, once shivering, emaciated bundles, grew noticeably, their fluffy pale gray-brown fur thickening, their wide blue-gray eyes bright with robust health. They tumbled over each other playfully, occasionally nipping at their mother's ear, and, remarkably, showed a surprising lack of fear towards the hunter, one bolder than the rest even sniffing his worn leather boots. The cave, once a prison of shared peril, transformed into an ephemeral, vibrant sanctuary. The hunter, though still gaunt and etched with the deep lines of his ordeal, was profoundly changed. His perception of predator and prey, of the brutal yet beautiful dance of life and death in the vast wilderness, had been irrevocably altered. He no longer saw the alpha wolf as an enemy, but as a silent, powerful partner in survival, a surrogate family he had saved and who, in turn, had saved a part of him. As he sat by the fire, mending his torn parka, the ancient carved bone amulet on his leather thong resting against his chest, he watched the pups play, even engaging in a gentle tug-of-war with a stick, his sharp blue eyes softening into a rare, almost smile. The alpha, observing, her fierce amber eyes now devoid of aggression, even demonstrated a protective deference, a powerful testament to his unexpected kindness. The morning sun, dazzling and clear, finally broke through, casting long, stark shadows across the pristine snow. The moment of decision had arrived. He stepped fully out of the cave, squinting into the dazzling light, his dark green heavy parka a solitary silhouette against the endless white. He looked back at the alpha and her thriving pups at the cave mouth, a deep sense of longing mixing with the knowledge that it was time to leave. He approached the alpha, extending a gloved hand. She met his gaze, standing tall, not snarling or shying away, but holding his sharp blue eyes with a powerful, unspoken understanding. Then, with a profound sadness etched on his weathered face, he turned his back on the cave, beginning his slow, purposeful trek across the vast, silent frozen wilderness terrain. The alpha watched him go, standing sentinel, a dignified farewell. He traversed glistening expanses of ice, his scarred, thick-gloved hands occasionally touching the carved bone amulet, a tangible link to his ordeal and his new understanding. From a high ridge, he turned back one last time. In the far distance, almost imperceptibly, a small group of wolves, including two distinctly larger, stronger pups, moved gracefully across the snow, healthy and thriving. He watched them, a faint, knowing smile on his gaunt, weathered face. He carried the physical scars of his ordeal and the indelible emotional mark of a bond forged in extreme adversity. He walked towards a distant, shimmering horizon, a living testament that true survival is not just about conquering nature or other species, but about embracing humanity in its most primal, unexpected forms, finding profound meaning in selfless acts, and carrying the quiet wisdom of extraordinary kindness.